Okay, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for the Stormwater Utility Information Session. My name is Eileen Winquist. I'm with Department of Environmental Services, and I'm also joined by Allison Jordan Thomas Chesky. Sorry if I um, didn't get that exactly right. So Allison is with our DES communications team as well. So Allison, if you can keep an eye on the lobby if additional folks join in case I don't see anyone, that would be great. So thanks, everyone. So I'm going to just go through a brief overview about the stormwater utility and the credit program, and then we're happy to take questions. I think if you haven't used Teams before, you can open your chat window. There's a little chat bubble up at the top, approximately in the middle. You can open the chat window. You can post questions in there, and then you can also, turn on your mic and your camera kind of on the top right. If everyone can mute themselves for the first part, that would be great. And as we get into the discussion, you can also raise your hand to ask a question once we get into the discussion portion. So let me just quickly go through the slides. So what is a stormwater utility? So up until this point, since 2008, the stormwater program in Arlington County has been funded through a sanitary district tax, and that has been based on the property's assessed value. So the county is transitioning to a stormwater utility, which is an alternate way to pay for the stormwater management program, and it is based on the amount of hard surfaces or impervious area on a property. Similar to your other utility bills like electric and water and gas bills, it charges properties a user fee based on the use of the county system, and the impervious area in the property is a measure of that impact of your property on the stormwater system. Obviously, we don't have a direct stormwater meter like you do for your water meter, but the impervious area is the proxy, to measure the amount of runoff from the property. And the impervious area is better correlated with the amount of runoff from a property than the property assessment, because there's really no direct correlation between a property assessment and the amount of runoff. So changing to a utility does give that a better correlation there. So again, what is impervious area? It's just the portion of a property that's covered with hard surfaces that don't let water, run off, soak into the ground. So, for example, patios, roofs, driveways, and walkways. And so properties that have more hard surfaces will generate more stormwater runoff to the system, and then would therefore pay a higher rate under a stormwater utility. Just as a note, gravel driveways and swimming pools are also considered impervious under a stormwater utility, and that is kind of a standard mechanism for a lot of stormwater utilities. And the reason with the gravel driveway, people may have a question there, is that the gravel does need to be fairly compacted in order for the driveway to function, so it does not let water soak in as much as more open space on the property. So why is the county making this change to a stormwater utility? The county, as you may be aware, has been dealing with more severe flooding in recent years and is making increased investment to our stormwater system. And so as a result of that, costs, for all property owners in Arlington will rise, to help with those increased investments. And so a stormwater utility is a fair basis for funding the stormwater management program. And so we're making those changes, again, trying to better correlate the fee with the amount of runoff that is generated from the property. So the stormwater utility will fund the same programs that are funded by the current sanitary district tax. And so this is really just a lot of the components of our stormwater management program. And that includes maintenance of over 200 miles of our storm sewer pipe and thousands of other elements of infrastructure, such as culverts and inlets and outlets, and other components that make up the storm system. We also are making investments, as we mentioned, to increase capacity and respond to severe flooding. So we are making those upgrades and improvements to the system. We also have water quality and regulatory programs that are required through the county's stormwater permit. And so those include green infrastructure and restoration and pond improvement projects. We also do floodplain management, education and training, and water quality monitoring. So those are all components of our stormwater program. There will be some new costs that are related to operating the utility, and that is 2.5 full-time employees and about $320,000 per year. So how does the utility work? The impervious area on a property is measured using the county's geographic information system imagery, and that's used to calculate the square footage of the impervious area. Properties are charged based on a unit. The billing unit for the stormwater utility is called an equivalent residential unit, or an ERU. And this is a billing unit that's unique to Arlington, and so it was created by looking at a sampling of residential properties and coming up with the median impervious area for those properties. So that is 2,400 square feet for Arlington. So if you look at different stormwater utilities, they may have a different billing unit that they are using, but in Arlington, one ERU is equivalent to 2,400 square feet. So just a little information on the fee structure. There are different customer groups within the stormwater utility. So you can see on the left for single-family residential, there are several tiers within the stormwater utility, and those include initial tier for townhomes and duplexes, and for single-family detached homes that are under 1,600 square feet of impervious area. Those would be billed at 0.6 ERU. Then we have tier 2, which is between 1,600 and 3,600 square feet. That is 1 ERU. And then tier 3 and tier 4 for single family are properties with a higher amount of impervious area at 1.7 ERU, or if it's above 4,800, it would just be billed for the number of ERU. And so for multifamily properties, they are going to be billed using a flat rate. And so that would be taking the total amount of impervious area for all multifamily properties throughout the county and totaling that up and then dividing it by the number of units. And this was a decision that was made as a result of some of the engagement process and in which there was a concern for the financial impact with some of our multifamily properties, including also some of our affordable housing. And so this was one way to mitigate that change, as some of the multifamily properties are very more sprawling and horizontal. And so that was a decision that was made to mitigate potential impacts there. And then you can see for non-residential properties, they are just billed by the number of ERUs on the property. So one note you can see at the top there for planning purposes, one ERU is estimated to be $230 to $250 per year. So the county board will vote to set the final rate this fall, but that is the estimate at this point. And just one other note, I think for single family, I think it's about 90% of single family properties are in tier 1 or tier 2, so would pay 1 ERU or less. So we did do a lot of engagement over the past year, a year and a half, and you can see here some of the engagement timeline. So we did have a stormwater utility advisory group that had members from a number of aspects of the community, and they provide a lot of really valuable feedback. We met with them throughout 2022. We also had an online feedback form and an open house last summer. And then we did some focused information sessions and virtual meetings with particular members of the faith community and nonprofit organizations as well. So we've received a lot of really useful input as we develop the rate structure and also the credit program for the utility. So I just wanted to briefly go over the credit program, and then we can pause and take questions and have any discussion. So with the stormwater utility through Virginia law, you do also need to include a credit program. And so the credit program you can see here has several different goals. We want to support water quality. We also want to promote awareness and encourage people to take voluntary measures on their property. Another key point, which I'll discuss, is that we wanted to minimize administration of the credit program. So again, we do not have several staff that are dedicated just to managing the credit program. So we wanted to have the credit actions be meaningful, but then also minimize the administration and sort of complicating factors in terms of running the credit program. So that was also a key goal for developing the credit program. And we wanted to acknowledge positive behaviors for property owners and provide a thank you to property owners for taking action. So the credit program includes both mandatory and voluntary actions. So through Virginia law, there is a requirement that localities provide a credit for stormwater facilities, even ones that were installed as part of a development project. So those are the mandatory credits, and then voluntary credits are for things that people have chosen to do on a voluntary basis. So the credit program, as designed, offers up to 35% credit, which would be approximately about $80 per ERU based on that current rate. And credits are available for some new actions that are taken and also some existing actions. And some credits are only for that 1 year, and some credits, once approved, can then be renewed on an ongoing basis. So just to cover some of the terminology there. So this chart kind of gives an overview for single-family residential. You can see at the top are the mandatory credits, and so these would be for stormwater facilities that are installed as part of a development. And these facilities will receive automatic credit when the property owner completes their required annual or biannual inspection. So again, these are facilities such as stormwater planters, pervious driveways, things like that, and they are required to do a regular inspection and maintenance and certify those with the county. If that process is completed on time, then those property owners will receive an automatic credit on their stormwater utility bill. So you can see the amount varies depending on when the facility was installed, because basically the facilities, the requirements for the facilities became more stringent in more recent years. So the more recently the facility was installed, the higher credit that is available for those facilities. So then you can see there are also voluntary actions that offer either 5% or 10% credit. So we do have conservation landscaping that would be for new areas of native conservation landscaping. But that is an ongoing credit. So if it is installed in 2023 and approved, you can then renew that credit on an ongoing basis for future years. We do also have a credit for a new tree planting, and that is an annual credit. So that would be available for that 1 year when the tree planting is completed. And then in addition, for rainwater collection, and that can be for new cistern or rain barrels or existing ones, and that again is an ongoing credit. And then in addition, for 10%, if you have either a new or an existing rain garden or a permeable driveway, there is credit available for those. And again, the maximum for the property is 35%. So as an example here, we have for a residential property that has 1 ERU, and you can see their fee there would be in the range of $230 to $250. If they had rain barrels and a rain garden, they could get up to 15% credit for those, and that would be an approximate $34 to $37 credit on their bill, and those would be available on an ongoing basis because those are renewable credits. And then for the non-residential customer group, you can see again as well the mandatory structural. So those are facilities installed as part of a development project. But then we do have additional options available. And some of this, again, came out of the engagement process, because within the non-residential group, we do have faith organizations and nonprofit organizations, and some of those organizations, were exempt under the sanitary district tax, and so this is a new fee for them, the stormwater utility fee. So we received, feedback of the importance of providing good options for them to be able to potentially reduce their fee. So you can see some of the voluntary actions under here, some volunteer activities. So same for, we have voluntary actions for 5%. We have the new conservation landscaping and tree planting. Also, the stormwater education event, that would be a potential annual credit, or volunteer activities such as storm drain marking, adopt a street, stream cleanups, invasive plant removals, and then other activities, for example, like a rain garden, a permeable parking lot or driveway, and those can be both existing or new, and then a parking lot or private street sweeping, and that would be for an annual credit. So again, just as an example, a non-residential property that has 10 ERUs, you can see the estimated annual fee, but then could potentially do tree planting, conservation landscaping, and some volunteer activities, and that could result in a 30% credit on their bill in the range of up to $750 for the credit there. So just a note on the timeline, our credit manual that we have on the Stormwater Utility website has a lot of information about the credit program and what to submit, but the credit application period will begin later this year, but any activities that are completed in 2023 are eligible for applying for credits. So again, volunteer activities, tree planting, things like that are completed this year. Then you can then keep your receipts and documentation from those materials, and you can submit the application when it is available, starting in November through January 15th. So that will be the period when you can apply online for credit for those. So, and again, some of the credits are available for some existing practices such as rain barrels and rain gardens. And so in that case, you would just gather some of the documentation and information, and you could submit that as well during the credit window. We do have a fee estimator map. If you have not had a chance to look at that, you can see the link there, but we can post those in the chat, but you can definitely go online. So you can search for your address, and then once the map finds your address, the easiest way is if you actually click on your property, outline, and kind of zoom in there, and you'll see a little pop-up window, which will include your estimated ERUs and fee. So I think there's, some people have had questions about as they're using the map, but I think it works best if you actually click on your property parcel there, and then to get the pop-up window. And again, we do have, here's the web link for Stormwater Utility, and we do have an email inbox as well if you have other questions. So I will go ahead and stop sharing, and then if we can open it up for questions, and I can reshare if anyone wants to look back at any of the slides. So see, maybe we have a question in the, oh, great, Allison posted in the chat. So I will go ahead and open it up if someone wants to raise their hand, or if you have questions you would like to post in the chat, please feel free to do that. So sure, RS, go ahead. I think you're on mute. I don't know if you're talking, but just remember to unmute yourself if you would like to ask a question.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, sorry.
Oh. Okay, let me turn the volume up here. You're very quiet, but go ahead.
Okay, so my question was on the conservation landscaping and why that one is only new and not existing
Sure.
to count towards the credit, because
Sure. No, that is a good question. And as we talked about, we tried to choose the credit activities in order to try to manage the complexity and the administration of the program. And so providing credits for some things like existing trees and existing conservation landscaping is a little bit more complex because property owners, may not have documentation and information from when they did those projects. And for example, with trees, questions about like the species of the tree, the condition, the health of the tree, may come into question a little bit more. So, and also there could potentially be many more property owners, that would apply for those credits. So that could potentially affect the rate, I think, overall for everyone. So, so the decision was made for conservation landscaping and tree planting that those would be available for new activities because then people could undertake those, with the information about sort of the documentation and the credit program in mind. And in addition, I think, it is a good incentive, for new tree planting as well, which I think everybody, is supportive of that. So,
Yeah.
but
I mean, I understand it for the tree planting because it's just an annual. So if I plant trees this year, I get a credit this year, but the other
mhm,
things are ongoing. And
mhm,
so, for instance, in my case, like our whole front yard has been made grass free and turned into conservation landscaping. So, like, it's obvious there's no grass there anymore,
mhm,
and it's something that you can't redo.
mhm.
So I was a little concerned about the conservation landscaping, that it has to be new, when I don't think that's fair for people who have already done it and it's obvious that it's been done.
Okay, sure. No, I mean, yeah, no, I definitely hear your comment. Um, and again, I think, the structure of the credit program that we have now, is not necessarily, you know, set in stone that it may not be modified moving forward. But I think at this time, that's what we have in terms of the tree planting and conservation landscaping, that it is for those new activities. But, again, I'm sure we'll continue to, engage with the community and receive feedback. And, it's possible we could make adjustments moving forward. So,
Okay, thanks.
mhm, okay. Ferris, please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you.
Mhm,
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the presentation. So my question, just to try to understand this a bit more, I'm a new homeowner.
mhm.
So when you said this is calculating the impervious spaces or lands where water is not flowing into the ground, it's going through the storm system, correct? Is that so? If you have a front yard or a backyard, I mean, it's water is coming through the ground and then it's not going into the storm system.
Yes, yeah, basically, the way the stormwater utility, is calculated, impervious area is used as a general measure of runoff from the property. Obviously, it's not, as exact as, for example, like your water meter that measures your exact use of water, like for your drinking water that comes into your house. So impervious area on the property is used as a general measure of the amount of runoff from the property.
And then you can apply to these credits to kind of
Mhm.
adjust, and you apply to these credits sometime in November this coming year or this year. That's when the applications will open up.
Yes, yeah, so we'll have the application form, available, yeah, at the beginning of November. So again, if there are, I don't know if you have, as we mentioned, the mandatory facilities on a property, those ones, as long as the homeowner does the normal inspection process, those ones will be automatic credits. But if there are activities that you want to complete this year, you may want to do those before November. If you, for example, wanted to do tree planting or do some conservation landscaping, those kinds of things, you would want to do those, now. And then you can apply for those in November. But if you've already installed a rain garden or you have a pervious driveway or something like that, then that might be something that's already completed, and then you can just apply for that in November. So,
Uh,
um,
I know the previous homeowner had an area where they used to puddle, and they've installed a system where it collects the water, and there's a well dug somewhere in the corner of the property. Is that something that applies? that can be used for credit? I haven't looked at the manual, but I don't know if that's too specific for this discussion here.
That may be something, yeah, and feel free to, send us a little more information. I think depending on what type of stormwater practice, that there is there. So yeah, there are, a number of different mandatory facilities that homeowners, that may have been installed. If I don't know when your home was built, if it's a
In the 80s.
relatively. Okay, so yeah, if it's not necessarily a new home, it may not have new stormwater facilities, but yeah, I think you can, if you want to send us some information about what is there, we can look at that to see. And I think Allison just shared also the stormwater credit manual, so that has some good information in there about what is included. So.
Can you speak a little bit about the process, that application process? How does it work? The inspection that you mentioned.
Sure. Yeah, the application process will be an online form, so it's again meant to be fairly streamlined. So it will be available online in November, and then they'll depending on what credit you are applying for, there's different information that you would submit. So it may include some photos. For example, if you do tree planting, it may include a receipt. If you, for example, the Tree Canopy Fund, offers free trees for property owners, and that actually is open right now through June 16th. You can apply for for a tree through the Tree Canopy Fund. So then you might attach, for example, your receipt or your email, from that process. So depending again on which credit, there are different documentation materials, but again, that would all be submitted online, and then those applications will be reviewed, by staff, and then they would, you'll then receive, an approval, or potentially if they need additional information, they may respond, to the application and request additional information. So again, that process will all happen electronically.
Thank you very much. And once they want to do the inspection, I'm assuming they'll reach out to you and schedule some time to do whatever inspection is needed on the property to confirm, or if they need to do an inspection.
No, yeah, really the credit, again, the credit process, is intended to be handled really electronically. So there may be photos that'll be submitted. The staff may just select a small number of properties to do actual in-person inspections, really, just more on a basis, for auditing. But we will not be intending to visit every property. Again, we just, we don't necessarily have staff available to visit each credit, and kind of inspect it in person. But there will be documentation that we'll be asking to be submitted.
And is there an appeal process if something got rejected or said, oh, this doesn't qualify, or?
Yeah, there will be an appeal process for the utility overall. For example, if you have a question about your impervious area on your property, there will be an appeal process for that. And then also for the credits, I think again, if there's a question, they may request additional information. So then, there will be, some opportunity for, some exchange there if there is a question on the credit.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, Peter, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, thanks. We had our backyard landscaped several years ago, and as part of that process, directed all of the downspouts in the backyard and the sump pump to a dry well that was constructed in the corner of the yard. So it sort of operates the same function as a rain garden. It directs all of that storm water into that dry well and away from the sewer. Is that something that you think would qualify for a credit? It seems to me it serves the same function, but it's not exactly a rain garden. It's obviously not rain barrels.
Sure. Yeah, that may be something you could submit, potentially as with the rain garden. I think, again, as this is kind of a new program, so we'll be evaluating things, but it does sound like, in terms of the the design that you made there, and the functionality, it may be more similar to a rain garden. So I think as we go through this first round of the
Yeah.
credit program, our stormwater staff will be working closely with the new staff for the stormwater utility, to review this,
Right.
especially the first round of credit applications, to make sure, that there's some consistency, but also that we can make some of the judgment calls, on some of the applications. So.
And the two downspouts in the front yard were not a part of that. Does the entire property have to been handled in order to get any credit, or might I get a partial credit?
Sure. Yeah. No, we purposely did not, with the credit program. Some credit programs, you do actually have to do calculations kind of showing what part of your home and driveway and everything drain to the different facilities. Obviously, that makes the credit application more complicated
Right.
for people to sort of, fill out and to kind of understand. So we purposely chose not to kind of go that route. So we are sort of more looking at the presence absence of these
Yeah.
facilities. So, for example, a rain garden, and that's great. I mean, that you have that information about the downspouts going to it. You can include that with your application, but we are not asking people to kind of do detailed engineering, drawings or calculations, because, from what we had heard in talking to other stormwater utility programs, that it, that can kind of be a deterrent, for people, to apply, for the credits, because it just makes it more complicated for people to understand and do those applications.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Mhm. RS, I see you still have your hand up, but I know you had a question earlier. I don't know if you have an additional question or.
No, sorry, I'll lower it.
Oh, it's okay. No problem.
You would think I would know how this works by now.
No, no worries. Oh, there's Katie. I see online too. Are there any additional questions, or we had a couple other folks that were Jay and Nick, if you had anything, but no pressure if. Okay, well, I do know that Allison posted the credit manual and the stormwater utility webpage, and the fee estimator in the chat. So please do go on there, and we do have the email contact information for the stormwater utility program. We have been, receiving questions and things to that, which we'll be responding to. So feel free to send us if you think of any additional questions. And I do want to also, again, remind folks for the tree canopy fund that there is a deadline coming up on June 16th. So if you are interested in that tree planting credit, then please, go. And that, I think we have the link for that in the credit manual. And so, definitely put in an application there if that's a credit that you're interested in for your property, or, potentially for your organization if you are a member of a faith organization or nonprofits.
Thank you for the stormwater utility credit manual. I wasn't aware that existed, so thanks for sending the link for that. I think there's also another meeting in June. Is that the repeat of this meeting?
Sure, yeah. Hey, Nick, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
Good to see you. Yeah, so this would be the June 2nd session will be similar, in content to this session. We just wanted to provide opportunity for people to learn about the utility and, again, kind of ask any specific questions about their, property or their credit questions. So.
Great, thank you. And then, sorry, are the slides going to be published somewhere?
Sure. Yeah, we'll have the video from today and the slides. We'll put those on the stormwater utility webpage. So I know we have, yeah, I guess we'll figure out exactly where, but we'll probably try to put that, on the main homepage just to make it easy to find.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, and we will continue to have these information sessions and Q&A sessions, I think, as we move forward, as people, start to get more into the credit program and looking at their specific options. So. Okay, well, if there are no additional questions, I'll go ahead and stop the recording, but thank you everyone for joining us today. And again, feel free, Allison posted the email address in the chat there, so feel free to reach out to us if you have any other questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.